Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Okay, so we're starting with me cackling because, as you know, if you listen to the podcast, I always hit record too early. And I don't know if I said this on here or not. This could be a repeat. There could be too many mushrooms in my system. But I always turn on to it. Welcome to Paranormal Karen. Very excited. You may have heard Barbra cracking open a can of water there. If not, we're just jumping in. So today I'm very excited because, as you guys know, I'm a little down on us all waking up and the things that are going on. And today I have somebody very interesting with solutions. Barbra is with me from the Diaries of the Psychic Sisters, which immediately, that's fantastic. So Barbra, tell me about you and, well, tell me, the book is called Diaries of the Psychic Sisters, right?
Diaries of a Psychic Sorority.
Sorority.
Talking with the angels. Yes.
Talking with the angels. Okay. See, this is why I'm never going to be famous. I had it written in front of me and my writing was so bad. This is literally what I thought it said. And I just looked at it all day yesterday. I watched an interview with you and your friends yesterday. I had Diaries of the Psychic Soldiers. And I was like, it's not soldiers. Why did I write it like that? Then I go, sisters, that's got to be right. And then it's sorority. So you have two friends and you're all, tell me about first tell me about you. How was your childhood, your entry into psychic and speaking to angels kind of stuff? How did that happen?
Well, it really happened for me with music. I was a young explorer, probably 4 or 5 years old. I climbed up on the piano bench and I began to teach myself music. And my mother was the choir director at church. And so I became a singer. I started to learn really rudimental music stuff. But about age 12, in the chaos of my household, started to sort of put poetry with music, and I began writing songs at a very young age. And I always say that songwriting for me is channeling. I go into the nothing and I pull out information that then gets separated into melody, chord structure, words, voice, instrumentation, and it's very much like channeling. But when I was in high school, my friend's mom was a psychic. I don't think we even called it channeling back then. And I started having readings with her, and she said she would close her eyes and kind of go out into outer space and float around. She never remembered what she had said to you. But in those readings, I began to learn not just about my own, talents and gifts for those sort of things, but I was really put through a training program where they would tell me something. I would write it down. I would think about what I thought it was going to mean. And then I would wait and watch through time as time unfolded to see what it really meant. So in that way, I got to it's like research and development more than just I have this gift, right? Mm-hmm. And really honed it. And I started channeling myself in 1987. As it started as automatic writing. I was writing a letter to my friend and telling her how bad it was to make judgments. And suddenly my hands shifted. And because I grew up with it and knew what it wasn't this shocking, oh my God, what's happening to me? But it was still shocking. Like, oh my God, I can do this. And so I started writing. I would just write for people. They come over and sit on my left side and I would write. And after a year, I was at a gathering at someone's house and I thought, this feels comfortable. I'm going to just pose it to them. Would they let me experiment to see if I can do this? I've never done it before, but I kind of know what it is. And one guy was super, super critical, just super kind of snarky. And I said, listen, I don't care if you believe it or not, but please just do me the honor of not doing that while I'm trying to do this. Mm-hmm. And he ended up asking the most profound questions. Mm. And when I was done, people were in tears and kind of sitting there like, what? And so I started doing this as a professional, I guess. I gave a couple of referrals, and that's really where most of my reach has come from, those two friends that I did the first readings for all those years ago.
Wow. I have to say hello to my friend Josephine in Arkansas, who we were just talking about. I think that there's a new, like, you are ahead of the curve. I think most of our information that we think has to come through words or through, writing is actually coming through art now, whether that's music or art. I think that people are learning that now, that art is now mandatory.
Yeah. And it's always been channeling. Yeah. It's always been a form of getting outside of yourself and tapping into a greater source to create something that has never been said or written or painted or whatever.
Yes. That's amazing. So now tell me about and also, skeptics, that's a funny topic because there are, the real word skeptic is no longer available to us. It's someone attacking you now. A skeptic is now someone attacking you, and it's very negative, and it's very different because a skeptic used to politely ask questions. But I also feel like a lot of times with a skeptic or a non-believer, they are so terrified, or may even be really psychic or something, you know what I mean, that they have to stop your belief. They have to attack it on you to so that they don't think it's them.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, there was a professional association of skeptics, and it was a much more academic kind of a function where you questioned each other. You're skeptical of this, and you question, you ask, but in that case with him, he was asking questions that were like the nature of reality, right? And not just like, is my girlfriend going to come back, or one of those things,
Right.
So somewhere in there, and it's I'm using air quotes now, it's a scary space, that space of that psychic non-physical reality, because it's so not how can I say this? What's the right word? Regulated. Like it's our wild passion. It's our connection to this divine, unexpected life force. And you can't really, you can control yourself and how you use it, but I don't want to. And I think most people aren't like that. They want to be compartmentalized and know where the next thing is happening. And
yes, and there's also there's an atheist, right? And there's actually, I saw one time on a 60 Minutes or something, and I would love to find this woman, although I don't know if it's there. She was the minister of the atheist church, and which at that point I think it was all about be a good person, do the best you can. It wasn't like karma or it's going to get you. But there's a lot of people that I feel are atheists simply because they're angry at God.
Yeah.
And that's hard too. If it's funny when gratitude is just an interesting thing, because even at my lowest here, I would get up every morning and write, thank you, thank you, thank you. So now you make friends. How does the rest of the sorority come together?
Well, I had been doing readings mostly just from referral. I started in 1987. In 1993, a woman came to my door for a private reading. She had been referred by somebody who came to me regularly. And I opened the door and I took a little breath in, like I thought I knew her. And she was this beautiful woman, and she was actually married to a musician. I'm also a musician, and at that time was a working musician. And we had this beautiful reading, and she sent 5, 6, 7 more people. And I had been thinking, I'm a big fan of Seth Speaks, Jane Roberts' books. If anybody looks into those, it was really foremost reading in my young adult. And I thought, what if I channeled for a group? People had been coming and going, and I record it, and we never really talked much about the content of it or how it meant whatever. And I thought, what would they say, and how would they phrase it? And now, bear in mind that I grew up Eunice described herself like an antenna. Like she was picking up my higher power and talking back to my human mind. There was never angels, never dead people, never anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I saw myself. And in the term of we, I know because they speak in we, I just figured it was just a collective, something, whatever. So here were nobody I knew wanted to do a group. And so here were these new women. And then in October, when Teresa's best friend, Kim, was sent out of crisis. Now, bear in mind, this was a conservative Republican who felt like wearing dangly earrings was being extremely, and so she didn't believe in psychics. And afterwards, and our reading, I was on the edge of the couch, like gripping the couch. I was talking so fast. And our reading led her, she transcribed it. And then she had to call me and talk about it and analyze it. What does this mean? What does that mean? And pretty soon they were coming to my gigs. And on the breaks, we'd all be just blah, 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 talking about everything. And finally, I thought, well, here's all these women. Maybe they'll do a group. And before I could ask them, they called me and said, we're having this little wine party. We wondered if you'd come. And I said, you want me to channel? Oh, yeah, well, we weren't going to ask you to go to work or anything. And that,
we weren't, but we were.
That was how, and I literally remember, and you probably, if you have any visions where I'm driving along the highway, it's winter, and I hear the voice tell me, you have a great mission together. And I was like, what? Yes, you're going to teach them how to channel and go on to this great thing. And at the moment I was like, I don't think so. I'm not a teacher. I don't want to teach anybody anything, but a mission, really? Okay. Yeah. Uh-huh. And now, of course, 30 years later, I can see how right they were. And we did the first group, and it was just completely magical. There were 8 of us, and it was probably 25 below outside. And they talked about a past life that we lived, where I believe I live now in northern Wisconsin on an island. But they talked about an indigenous life. And every time they said, feel that fire burning and feel that furs wrapped around you, that through her house would blow some, wind. And
wow.
So we transcribed it and decided that we would continue to do this. And I was hearing, you have to write a book. And so we thought, what better way than to capture it while it's happening. Let's write our diaries while it's happening. And so that's what we started to do. And mostly we would make these transcripts for the people who were coming to the groups, because they seemed to be like the whole first thing was about culture, the voices of culture, and how we're molded around these voices of culture and our intellects that tell us who we are and what we are. And most of them are derogatory to begin with, right?
Yes. So you mean, when you say that about voices of culture, do you mean like girls are supposed to do this and boys are supposed to do this? Yeah.
Yes. And that what they were trying to tell us in that reading was, we're here. They told us they were here to help they were going to teach us world peace, one person at a time, starting with us. And that they were here to give us this process, the revolutionary process that they wanted to test out to see if they could affect the course of the world. And they were working for peace. And what better way to test out a new revolutionary way to deal with conflict than with 3 women?
Right.
I don't mean that ugly.
No, I'm stuck on the phase they want to test it out, because I have a theory. I don't know if this is kind of way up, but somebody alluded to something like this, and then I thought, Earth is kind of the reality show of all the other beings. That's what I feel like, and they are actually rooting for us. But that almost sounds like that. Like, hey, let's see if the people on the reality show could try this. That's very interesting.
Right. And I thought so too, because remember, I was an antenna. And so now when Kim and Teresa said in one, because I was doing triad readings with the 3 of us as well. And they said, well, who are you? And they said, well, you can call us angels. And I was very skeptical myself. Like, wait a minute. This is not the typical language of the angel channelers I've been listening to or I've heard before. And so anyway, so we get to the second master group, and that was, we called it conflict resolution. But that was where they introduced this idea that if you're engaged in a conflict and you have an emotional attachment in there, the root of your part is inside you. And for somebody who at that point was, I was a drama queen. I was
Everyone is.
Yeah. We create chaos around us. And I was always victimizing myself and being the victim. And that just snapped my head around when I thought, wait a minute, what? Huh?
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so it got us thinking differently. And then we had our first fight. And between the three of us, everything was all heady. You can only imagine, we couldn't wait to be together to channel and talk and put this stuff together and write our book. And then we had our first fight. And we were sitting at my kitchen table. Tension had been building, and we were going to talk about it. And it got more and more, we were trying to be spiritual, right? It got more and more heat. I said, wait a minute, let's get that transcript. And I brought out the transcript and I said that I read the part about if your part is within you and you need to look inside yourself. And in that moment, it was like Satori, we called it, there's like this kind of swoosh where we all went, oh, and we stopped our conversation from, well, you just want to blah, blah, da, da, da. And it went, I went to, oh my gosh, I realized I need to do blah, blah, blah. And Kim said, oh, and here I am, look at me doing blah, blah, blah. And the whole thing shifted in that moment. And this is the kind of research and development that they wanted us to do and that we actually did. And years later, of course, proved that their theory not only works, but it creates miracles.
Yes. And also, I'm going to add a little story to this really quick, and then we'll take a break. And then I have 2 topics already to just dive into. It's funny because it's, and I know this was a while ago because you're already 6 books in. This was before, I feel like, were you guys a little ahead of the self-help movement? You really were.
Yeah.
So it's the mirroring thing. And I'm dealing with, it's so funny because I'm dealing with someone here in Utica that's having fights with everyone. And I'm like, you're not serious about comedy. Like, I want to just go, you're not serious about this. I'm not dealing with it. Get out. Whatever. I shouldn't, I'm not saying that, but in my mind, I'm going, he's creating all this chaos. But I was like, this is a weird segue, on my Bumble dating app, there's finally like 3 or 4 guys that I'm like, okay, this is what I want to meet, this person, this and that. And none of them, they're all texting back and forth, none of them asking to meet. And I was like, okay, so everybody's hesitant. So I must be hesitant. So out loud, I was like, no, I am ready to go out and meet someone, like just like that. And immediately one of them emailed me back and was like, hey, why don't we meet? And so it's that mirror that's the hardest part I think humans have, is that we're creating a mirror.
And for a long time, I know you have to break, but for a long time, the idea of using the mirror sort of turned into like victim shaming, oh, you're not responsible. But when you use that formula and now you're on conflict revolution, which is what this all turned into, is that soundbite that you identify for what are those people that are irritating me, and then you turn it in on yourself and you give yourself that witness. Okay, where am I actually? And you got yours real quick. Oh, I'm hesitant. Okay, now I'm going to. Here's the action plan. I'm not going to be hesitant anymore. I'm going to step up and say, nope, I'm ready. Enough, and you'll make different decisions. You won't put up with people who won't do that, who will just not ever want to meet. They just want to talk.
Right. And of course I mixed 2 stories there, but let's on the other side, because the other story about the person that's starting fights that I just don't want anything to do with, let's hit that for a second, because I think okay, we'll be right back.
Many people are unaware just how much hypnotherapy can help them, or think it's only to help lose weight or quit smoking. But there is so much more hypnotherapy can do. It can help with stress, anxiety, insomnia, phobias, performance enhancement, connecting with your spirit guides and higher self. You can even discover past lives and your life between lives. Heal traumas, break habits, find your deepest truth, or just have fun discovering who you really are, all from the comfort of your home. I'm Monique Pliakis. I'm a certified hypnotherapist, and I want to help you. Schedule a free consult by going to www.innerstandingshypnosis.com. That's INNERSTANDINGSHYPNOSIS.com. Innerstandings Hypnosis. Find your power and ignite your inner light.
Okay, so there's the mirroring part, and then there's also, this is my question on the other one, okay? So this is sort of a new wave in spirituality, and I kind of like it. I'm not positive on it, but the thing was always like, be a bigger person and walk away. And now that I want to say the airy fairies are out, because there was a lot of airy fairies that everything is good, and I'm not on that level. I'm like, everything's a lesson, but there is, our shadow side and all that other stuff, and you have to take responsibility.
Yes.
It's not all, you know what I'm talking about. And there's a, if you walk away, then that person doesn't learn anything or you know what I mean? Or if you just disappear, they don't really get, and they continue in their behavior. So it's kind of like a fine line there that I kind of agree with, like, don't brush it off or don't leave it. But it's funny because I am in this place of saying to this person, do you want in or not? I'm the mama bear of comedy here. And I'm kind of like, okay, I don't, if you're going to do that, I don't want you in the group.
Yeah. And, it's, first of all, I don't think it's a linear, compartmentalized process. I think that there's a real art to using the mirror. Mm-hmm. And more than if you walk away, that person won't learn anything. More than that, if you walk away, you haven't learned anything. You're not going to get to that mirror of that person in you and make that change within yourself that person will either disappear or they'll rise to the occasion. That's always what happens when we get our aha moment, and then we see that thing, and then we make our action plan and we change within ourselves. We change, as within, so without, right? So as far as the guy in the circle, technically, if you were to do, like, if we were going to work together and do a revolution, you would take that soundbite, whatever you see him doing, and reduce it down to a very easy to remember soundbite. Otherwise, it gets in our intellects that, are crazy, wild. And then we set about to watch ourselves and see where we're perpetrating those things and it doesn't mean that he's not doing that. It doesn't mean that at all. Mm-hmm. It's just that when we do it this way and we unattach ourselves from that and we revolve the focus back to ourselves, now we're back in our power. We're back in our magic. We're back in our courage, because it takes I had a soundbite that she is a liar. And I was like, wait a minute. No, I'm one of the most honest people you'll ever meet. But then once I started being open to witnessing, well, where might I be lying to myself mm-hmm. or to other people? Then you start to see how much you lie to yourself. And then there's so much work to do on yourself that you can't, like other people, right. that's their domain. But I guarantee that if you could successfully revolve that conflict with him, that he would either go away or he would rise to the occasion. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Just one more thing. And the thing to remember is that when you're doing that work, sometimes it's a direct mirror. Lily and I, or Kim and I, have had conflicts where we're exactly doing to each other what the other one is doing. But sometimes it's something way over in another quadrant of your life. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I had a drunken marketing manager at a job I worked at once, and the root of that turned out to be something with my husband that was unresolved. And when I resolved it with him, 2 days later, she was fired. And it's just, this is kind of how the flow is with this. But anyway, so that's.
Yes. I think that 2022 has been, maybe that's it. Why? Because 2022 is just a hard year, and I can hear it in my clients, even, because usually everybody's pretty, I kind of want to say light, or sometimes they have harder problems, but boy, this year, I think it maybe is the spotlight on everything we haven't been looking at.
Yes. And that for all these years that has led up to where we are now, because this didn't happen overnight.
Mm-hmm. It's a crash course now.
Yes. And what you were saying about, there are some strains of spirituality or belief systems that say, the anger and the sadness and all that, those are the lower vibrations, to stay away from those, and we have to stay up in this. And this whole thing that's come through me all these years and everything we've developed says the opposite, that in fact, emotion, and this will move us into where my channeling moved from the angels into the party of 12, and learning that I've been working with Albert Einstein.
I have another person that had Albert Einstein pop in. I really think, but anyways, okay. So we're going to go to the party of 12. Jumping back one more topic. Is there, or is it a long, sort of effort, a way to teach people to, and I'm going to say this, safely challenge? I mean, a lot of, you're right, artists, musicians, a lot of people are channeling already. And this may also be the actual reason why I feel like art is mandatory now, is that people are supposed to be channeling more, not exactly channeling a book, but in their own lives, channeling their guides, and maybe that helps. But is there some really quick tips you could give to people? And again, I always say safe, because I'm from the paranormal side, where know who you're channeling.
Well, I would start by saying that people need to channel themselves.
That's the morning pages, right? The 3 pages?
Well, but if practically speaking, to begin, even before you put the pen to the paper, to understand that our state of being, humans, is an act of channeling. We are channeling source energy through, and in our model, the source is in the center of the earth, and we are gravitational waves moving to the surface, creating the lens where everything separates out, right? It becomes physical reality. And then that wave moves on into the heavens, and it meets up with the electromagnetic field of the earth, and it goes back up into the North Pole and down. And this is the spinning string. So we are, in essence, channeling ourselves, and we're tapped into everything. The source is everything. So technically, you should be able to channel anyone, right? In anything, if you're tapped into the source. But it's the training of the intellect that is essential. So somehow, I would say a very simple way to understand it is that you have emotion in your solar plexus, you have intuition in your heart, and you have intellect in your brain. And if you feel a flowing up through your emotion, and bear in mind, we want to feel all our feelings, and move it up into your heart, where your intuition is going to tell you the next most advantageous step to take for the good of the whole, because intuition is all about God and compassion and for our greatest good. And then it gets into the intellect, and now we're going to have all those voices we're talking about. You're not good enough, the lies, you can't channel, who do you think you are, that's not who, and then making judgments and decisions. So one of the easiest ways, if you're doing morning papers, if you're going to just sit down, and you have to somehow, you can't shut up the ego, you can't, but you can reduce it into they used to use the term, like, you have a little squirrel. When I channel, I used to imagine that my ego got in this little tiny rocking chair. And then I would be channeling, and I could have a lot of room to hear, but over in the corner, there was this little, you can't say that. So somehow find a way to get out of your mind and use the breath work of pulling up emotion, because emotion is our passion, and emotion literally is where the data of all of it is flowing up into our bodies anyway to be channeled. So and experiment, see, and do like what I was talking about. Don't make any assumptions about it. Read it, be open to it, commit to the mystery of it, and then kind of watch yourself and watch what's coming out. What is it saying? And really, if somebody I've never had a negative experience with it, like channeling evil spirits. I haven't had that. Doesn't mean somebody else hasn't. But if it doesn't feel good, don't do that then.
Yeah.
Well,
also starting with know yourself is sort of a thing there. And also I hate to keep saying this, but the airy fairies that don't believe there is anything bad out there, that's not a good angle either. But I don't think anyone that listens to this podcast doesn't believe that there aren't bad things out there. But knowing yourself, yes, that's fantastic. So, and also, just is this in one of your books, or do you teach a course on this, or it's pretty much that's the start of it, and then you walk people through?
Well, I have a workshop that I do, Conflict Revolution, and I've traveled around the world teaching and training this to people. I used to travel a lot over to Europe and train and do readings over there and sing. Since COVID, I haven't, but I've just published the workbook. It's actually the curriculum. I did the first class in 1999, so I've been doing this for a really long time, and this is really the kind of the epitome of a simple explanation of it. I have a much more scientific, I wrote a book called Einstein et al. Manifestation, Conflict, Revolution, and the New Operating System. And that's a very in-depth book, really focused on the science of it, of why it works scientifically. We have a unified field series and maps of human consciousness and why it works. So Einstein he's done a little more than popped in a few times. He's really been the basis, even back when we were doing the angel stuff with, if you have a conflict, it's within you. They were introducing us to these ideas. Then the Party of 12 appeared, and he appeared, and I did a volume just with him. But this book that I've just put out, Conflict Revolution, the workbook, is the simple but still very clear process and understanding of why it works and how it works. And it really is revolutionary, because people don't think about emotion as a separate organ, like a spiritual organ, than intellect. Like people think they're one thing, and they're not. They're two different things with two different functions and two different ways in which to care for them. And people.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was going to say, and people can buy this and just sort of start working through it.
Yeah.
Is it a PDF?
Very simple. It's a hard copy. Okay. I don't have it in. I don't have an ebook of it. It's the pretty graphics heavy, and I haven't quite gotten there to it. But I have a PDF. I can certainly.
I meant for people to buy. Okay, so that sounds great. Now tell us. And we'll let's make another note about that at the end, because I think people would love to order that. The workbook. Okay, I'm writing that down. So tell us how and who. Did you meet the 12, and who are they?
Well, after Diaries came out, I had a literary agent in New York, and she was shopping I wrote some movies and some other things, and she was shopping the book, and she got a call from a tabloid in London on the 1-year anniversary of the death of Princess Di. They wanted to do an interview from Beyond the Grave.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of that. And I was very reluctant to do it. I'd never gone to a dead person and asked them. Mostly they came to visit me, And, but I did it. I channeled the questions. I channeled the answers. I printed it off and went to go read it. And it was stunning. It was it floored me. I wept. I could hear her speaking. Oh. And so the tabloid flew me out to New York and spent 5 hours with me, and after copious amounts of champagne, and asking me endless questions about Princess Anne. Oh, how did you know that? It's like, well, I guess I'm psychic, but, and then they didn't want the interview because I believe there wasn't enough dirt in it, because it was all about peace. It was all about world peace and her death and what happened, her relationship with Dodie, and very intricate description of the dynamic of what was going on with them on a personal level. And so my agent said, hey, let's see if there's any more dead people who want to talk. And so we made a big list, Gandhi and Mother Teresa, and I would go in my head, I'd go and, Elvis said, I've gotten in too much trouble, and Mother Teresa was tired and whatever. And so the next person who popped up was Nicole Brown Simpson. Mm. And that was truly another enlightening conversation, because I never thought about, I always thought you died and you went into the light and everything was nice. And well, no, not really.
No,
murdered.
Yeah. Well, that's a complicated issue on its own.
Yes, very, very much. But so by the third one was John Kennedy, and he said, you're not in charge. We'll tell you from here on in who's going to be up next. And we prepared this book. And, so when I got to Einstein, when they said Einstein, I knew this voice had been with me forever. It was like, oh my gosh. And then Freud, Hitler, Anwar al-Sadat, and Ryan White, Marilyn Monroe, Jackie.
Let's start with Hitler.
Yeah.
Was that well, go ahead. What did he have to say?
Well, it was a very sort of vacuumous conversation, but basically what he was saying was, there isn't a hell, it's that you're in hell.
Yeah, that's what I figure. And there's self-punishment.
Yeah. But his, he explained so much that I did not appreciate until the last maybe 5, 6, 7 years,
about how
about
you become a Hitler.
Yes. And what psychologically was going on with him, and how, and why channel Hitler, because I can tell you, to anybody who thinks that this is good, no, you get into the other side and you're in hell, pretty much. So, and that balanced off the last one, which was Jesus, which was also a very enlightening conversation. And the whole point of it was, within the spectrum of humanity, we all have this meter, from Hitler to Jesus. We all have that potential meter. And we've been given this free will for us to decide where on that meter we're going to go.
I think, I have to say, I think that's funny that you specified that Jesus was enlightening, because it would be worse if you were like, it's Jesus, and he was like, so let's talk about the Kardashians. What do you think of Kim's blonde hair? And then you'd be like, really, Jesus? Really?
I know, right? So anyway, that's how Party of 12 came out. And then in 2005, it was the 100-year anniversary of Einstein's miracle year. And so I did a little book of channeled stuff with him and edited it. And it was mind blowing. It just blew my mind. It was the beginning of his explanation of how reality is created one step at a time. And the mind blowing thing with that is that he makes a scientific definition of compassion and fit into earth science.
Oh,
and
let's hold on right there. That's a beautiful cliffhanger. Let's do that and come right back to the definition of compassion. Okay, hold on.
Hi, my name is Ashley, and Prithvika is my collection of consciously created crystal and nature-forged jewelry. Prithvika translates to of the earth in Hindi, which represents the natural earth-made materials I'm working with, along with my personal ancestry and grounded energy. Each piece is created through ceremony and science, and completed with being Reiki charged. I'm currently featuring copper mirror necklaces, which can be used for protection and mirror magic. My intention is for your new piece of jewelry to feel like an extension of self, to help bring your desires to fruition and to amplify the magic within you. My Instagram is @Prithvika, and my website is prithvika.com. That's PRTHVEEKA.com.
All right. So I love where you were going. Tell us the definition of a scientific definition of compassion.
Okay. Well, we'll just to preface it, in the earth sciences, there's 4 fundamental forces, and they each have an effect upon matter, right? So electromagnetics kind of ignite things, right?
Mm-hmm.
The strong nuclear force attracts and repels. The weak nuclear force transforms, like green to red or 1 to 2, and gravity guides. So these 4 fundamental forces influence the creation of matter, how matter is manifest. Well, compassion, Einstein said, is the 5th fundamental force of the universe. And it's basically the intelligence that uses the 4 fundamental forces to impel the creation of matter from nothing into the infinite universe, one step at a time. And how it influences matter is that, like a compass that draws circles, compassion is this mysterious force that steps out of the nothing, of the void, and into the everything, and creates a circular domain. It's like he calls it a compilation of consciousness. So it's like a particle, and it surrounds all of the mathematics that are going to be you and your world in the source, that deep in the source. So that's one influence. The other one is compass, like a compass that guides your way to the north, right?
Mm-hmm.
Compassion aligns all of these particles to the true north of the earth, because, as I said, the source is within the center of the earth, so that we all are on the same map. And then the third thing it does is it gives us the innate understanding that we are all one being,
mm-hmm.
all one particle. And then that's the this mysterious compassion is impelled to create this compilation of consciousness that is me, and then it sends a gravitational wave up through the planet, literally to the surface of the planet, to create. So this concept of compassion being this 5th fundamental force of the universe, it's pretty huge and sweeping. And every time I hear like Greg Braden or some other Nissan Harriman or some other physicist or talking about how we don't really know this, and I think wait,
right,
read this little book, because it's so brilliant.
And what is the name of that book?
Imagining Einstein.
Imagining Einstein. Okay, and now, and this is a theoretical question that you might not be able to answer. Would the creation of Hitler be, and I kind of have a theory on this, the void in compassion, or would it be, and this is really weird, would he be a compilation of all the anger that people had built up and it became a
Wow, those are 2 great questions.
Because I feel like, and I don't, I'm so sorry, but I wanted to throw this in. How do I say this? So he pointed it at the Jewish people. This is the problem, or the handicapped people. These are the problem. These are why your life is not going right. So he tapped into, and this is what scares me, is that it's like anger comedy, which some of anger comedy is great, but you're tapping into people's lowest forms. And this is a weird transition. But I remember I was first coming up in comedy when Andrew Dice Clay was there. And he never, as a comic, you're always about free speech. And I wasn't that, we knew that he was a parody of the guy you would never talk to at a bar. You would walk away so fast from this idiot. And that's what Andrew Dice Clay saw. But they showed some of his, this was a couple weeks ago, they showed his audience screaming in, Madison Square Garden. And I was like, I never saw that because I was too young in comedy, but that could have been a Hitler rally. The way these men were so angry and screaming that it's like, I don't think we're that far from that. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, definitely. And what Hitler actually said was was the first thing you said, was that there was a void within him, of where compassion didn't have an effect on him. And partly because what you're talking about is it's mass formation is what happened, is that people are so angry and disturbed, and they're told not to feel those feelings anyway. So they're all lying under the surface. And here comes a guy who is, as sick as the most of them, who rises to power to be able to provide an object for that anger, and is able to sway people who are probably wayward. Germany was already suffering from having lost World War One and all kinds of other things. And
so things weren't good to begin with. And now this guy comes and says, I'll tell you I'll tell you why this is so bad. And people listen.
And the reason they listen is because when people are in those times, and I wrote an article about this, about the times of COVID, because everyone went so insane. And is that when you have a dissettled, you're not connected to people, you're probably not, most people probably aren't real satisfied in their jobs anyway, and here comes, and you're isolated. So here comes somebody saying, here's the object that is, if we destroy this object, you're going to feel better. And then you're in a group. Now you have a connection. It's not the best connection, but it's a connection that you didn't have, and there's a purpose and a mission. Now we're gonna, and I've seen this happen in modern times, which is why I had written that article, kind of explaining what mass formation is and how it seems to be taking over the world again. People are so angry and they're pointing at objects. And that's why I love conflict revolution. It's because let's first start with ourselves. Let's first start with the anger we have and what to do with it and how to process it and how to live a different way so it doesn't become that projection.
Yeah. Yeah. And you and I are very politically aligned, first of all. But also, that's what do you think where do you think we're going? I am seriously worried that not enough people are getting it or waking up. And I'm sure, it all turns out how it turns out. We can't control it. But I mean, I love your statement of let's all start with ourselves. And to me, that all statement starts with let's start talking to who you think your enemy is, who you don't agree with. Don't talk about what you don't agree with. Meet that person. Ask them about their kids. Ask them if they like their job. Find something in common first. That's if I could preach anything, it's that. Because, like you said, I just have to say this. The other day I had on both news channels, the two, MSNBC and Fox, and both of them, if you just equal amounts of what is wrong with that person and what they're doing to you. What is wrong with that party and what they're doing to you? And I was like, I can't, it's so evil.
Yes. And both those do it. However, I would say people should listen to both. I can't listen to the left right now. Because I grew up, I was a Paul Wellstone Democrat, and I can't listen to the left. I've been listening to the more conservative stuff. And what I'm finding is that it's helping me understand. I don't agree with everything. I'm not a, Robotron that's going to watch Fox News and suddenly turn into whatever. But it's helping me understand and hear things that I wouldn't hear. And people don't, they get scared. They do get scared.
Yeah. And whatever, there is some sort of joint effort. I don't know what it is, but there is some sort of joint effort, I feel like, to make sure that people don't really know what's going on.
Yes. But as far as where we're going, I really believe that this movement of turning inward and this movement of people being forced more and more and more to have to deal with themselves, it's a make or break time for each individual. And that makes up the whole whole world, the reflection of all of us. And I don't know where it's going as far as, are somebody going to drop a nuke and is this going to be the end? But I do know that if I strengthen myself and I know the world's a crazy place and I'm not going to fall for all that stuff, and I have a process with which I can process my emotions regeneratively and find creative solutions and work for the good of all, that's all I can do. It's all I can't take on the whole world. But if I do that, I get a lot done. It's a gracious plenty.
Yeah.
But I just want to add one quick thing. I live on an island in Lake Superior, and I'm right in the middle. Well, I happen to be in the middle of 1854 treaty territory, but all across northern Minnesota, all across Wisconsin, and into Michigan is Indian country. And Indian country is a world that most people don't see or know exist. But when you live in it and you're aware of it and you're part of it and you realize that this indigenous way of life is what really is going to save us, then I get more hope because I'm steeped in it here and I'm part of supporting that system as well and watching as native and non-natives come together to live in that way as sovereign individuals. And we got a lot of transition to go through, but I have hope for humans. I think humans are made of compassion, basically. And once you clear out the minds and let that flow, there's a lot of potential miracles to be created.
If you ever run into someone that would be a good indigenous person to talk about exactly that, please let me know. I'd love to have them on the podcast because
Absolutely.
There's also a thing. I always bring the dark side. You give this great, beautiful message of light, and I'm like, oh, that's great. And then I go, but what about?
I know.
But I feel like, and this is something I don't know how to get involved in help, but indigenous women are disappearing at an unbelievable rate. And the FBI is not helping. I've been watching this over and over on YouTube, on TikTok, on news channels. And I wonder, me and my friend are feeling like if you get rid of them, you get rid of exactly what you just said, exactly learning the right way to live there. I don't know.
Exactly. And the genocide that's already gone on with the Native Americans has only made them stronger here, anyway, where I live. They haven't lost their ways. They haven't lost their vision. They haven't lost their connection to the land and to the lake. And so that's the good news.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. If you know anyone that could do a podcast on that, let me know. There's also an interesting thing too, and I'll use comedy again as a barometer, sort of. So you had Roseanne was the domestic goddess, sort of handing it back to housewives, that they work hard. Then you swing that the other way, and you get Andrew Dice Clay, the anti-feminist, the opposite. Then you swing back the other way to Jerry Seinfeld. I'm not saying anything. So there's and I feel like humanity right now is like exactly what you were talking about emotionally. The pendulum has swung just a hair too far to everybody's hurt feelings, but it actually is still a good swing, isn't it?
Yeah,
because at least we're looking at it.
Right. I mean, for years we've had our head in the sand. We haven't lived in a world that has not had propaganda in it ever. And so here we are suddenly waking up to this. It's a beautiful thing. Everybody's got to, it's your time. It's my time for me. It's your time for you. Everybody's going to have to do their own life.
Yeah, that's very funny. I want to write a comic about caveman propaganda. And there was. We could go read the walls on the cave, and there's one guy going, no, don't take those berries, take these berries. I've got an investment in these berries, and you can come.
Right. Yep. They're gonna.
Yeah. So I love this. I just love this part of. It's all we can do, and I'm sure this is on there, but honor others.
Yeah. And we can't really honor anybody any more than we honor ourselves. Right. And so self-love and learning to self-love. And so many clients I have are like, oh yeah, self-love, but what's the real answer? Well, no, that's it. When you honor yourself, you learn how to have a healthy life and a thriving life, what your needs are, and how to fulfill those needs yourself. And you know that you can fill those needs yourself. That's what has made my life into where I can watch all the sad, scary stuff, and it doesn't make me less optimistic. It doesn't freak me out. It's like I've been brought here at this time to make a difference. That's my job, and here I'm doing it.
That's great. That's I think that's like, maybe that's why I sort of met you and this was timed like this, because I feel like I have a little piece there that's crossing over. People who've listened to my Patreon for $5 a month will know the little story that I'm telling about that. Get in a little plug there. I had a question on the tip of my tongue. Okay. Einstein. Now, I also believe people don't always realize what a spiritual person he was.
Yeah.
So
he was very spiritual in his own, scientific way. And getting back to, you're talking about the atheists. This work that I've done with him, and especially imagining Einstein, there's been people who have come to me who said, my husband and I are different religions. And this is what brings us together, because it's really, this philosophy and this writing and this articulation is really a true melding of science and spirit. And
I love it.
It isn't a God. It's us. It's us, and it's within us. And we have the power. We don't always use it, but we have the power to really master our lives.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about bringing that to the world.
Yes. And, and here is the other thing. And it's like, I constantly feel like I give people and their tarot readings, advice or whatever is coming through the channel. And then I always stop and say, I'm saying this like it's easy. And a lot of it is not,
Yeah.
but that, I want to say the willingness to change. I feel like shame has been built in from the start. And it's almost like if you were to let go of your shame or to let go of your worry, what would happen? Like, people are afraid what would happen. Like, there's some reward. Oh, I worried so much during my life. Well, you get 10 more points then.
Yeah, right.
Instead of, yeah.
Well, and in this model that I'm teaching and training is that once we learn how to deal with all emotion becomes a processing with breath and body. It becomes something that you can have that shame and you can be feeling and breathing it, but it's the thoughts that trigger, that the shame triggers. Oh, I'm not good enough, or that's all an intellectual activity, and you can't feel with your intellect. You need to feel your emotions with your breath, moving them through your body. And then that way, shame becomes another piece of the spectrum of the emotional richness without marrying to those thoughts about all the things we did that were so shameful.
Ah, excellent.
See, so they're like two different organs. You wouldn't treat your stomach like you would treat your heart. They have the intellect and all that thinking, that has one way that we deal with it. And then how we deal with emotion is another way. What's so interesting is that as you work this, and you can try it in little pieces. The next time you find yourself really pissed off at someone, we get in our mind and we're telling them what they did and all that. Stop and go, wait a minute. Oh, here's that anger. I'm supposed to just breathe. It doesn't have to do with him. It's just anger in the moment that's connecting with me and breathing. And you empty out pretty quick. Things start to shift pretty quickly when you start to do this.
Yeah, I'm not angry, but I also am not like at that person, but I'm also not about setting standards. Like, no, we're going to have a show. You're not bringing that in.
Right. Well, that's different. That's different than that anger that comes through where we think somebody else has made us mad.
Yes. The one that sticks with you.
Yeah, and in your case, what you were saying was that was a healthy response to maybe a trigger of no, okay, you're not bringing that in, and that's for the good of the whole. Yep.
Yeah. Barbara, this was fantastic. Tell everyone where they can find your books.
Okay. Partyof12.com, partyof12.com. Also, barbrawith.com is kind of all things me, but Party of 12 is Einstein and all my metaphysical books. Conflictrevolution.org is specifically for that. So you can find me there or on Amazon, and I'm available for readings, and I'm starting to do some training and classes in conflict resolution, both online and live. So all that information will be there.
Fantastic. And the best name ever, like Barbra with Friends. Right? Oh, yes. I love it. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Karen.
That was and don't hang up after I close out the show. But that was fantastic. Everybody go get a book of some sort, and let's fix the world from the core of the Paranormal Karen listeners. Yes. Thanks to Mike at Uno Rising Media. And also, folks, I don't think I'm putting out a podcast for Thanksgiving. I think I'm going to take Thanksgiving in December and Christmas off just because those are there. I think. I'm not positive. You know me. You can't tell. But if it's not there, I did it on purpose. Okay, everybody, have a great week. Paranormal Karen.